The first time my parents called me a dropout in front of other people, they said it like it was a helpful lesson. We were at a family dinner. My mother was talking to my aunt about school and careers, and I remember her lightly touching my sister's shoulder. "Look at her," she said. "Always focused. Always responsible." Then she nodded in my direction. "And then there's him. He quit?" There wasn't anger in her voice. That's what made it worse. It sounded casual, almost educational. My sister looked embarrassed, but no one challenged it. The word just settled into the room like a fact. Dropout. After that night, it became a story my parents repeated easily, at gatherings, weddings, birthdays. If someone asked how their children were doing, they had a simple structure. First, they talked about my sister. Then they talked about me. "You know, he left school. We tried everything." Sometimes they would add, "But look at his sister." For a while, I tried to explain that leaving school didn't mean I had stopped working, but explanations sounded like excuses to them. Eventually, I stopped trying. I moved into a small apartment with a leaking sink and unreliable heat. During the day, I worked small freelance jobs just to keep the lights on. At night, I built something I barely understood yet. The first version failed in 6 months. The second lasted 8. The third almost worked. No one in my family knew what I was doing. I didn't hide it deliberately. I just stopped updating people who had already decided who I was. Years passed quietly like that. My sister's life moved along the path my parents loved to talk about. Good job. Promotions. The kind of stability people can describe proudly to relatives. Then she got engaged. The wedding became my parents' biggest project in years. My mother talked about venues and guest lists constantly. My father mentioned the cost of the dress at least 5 times to different people. 18,000, he said once at dinner, shaking his head with pride. But she deserves the best. By then, my company had already passed 50 employees, but that fact lived only in my office. When the wedding week arrived, I flew in quietly and checked into a hotel nearby. My parents didn't ask where I was staying. At the rehearsal dinner, my mother hugged my sister for a long time. "You've always made us proud," she told her. Then she glanced at me. "You know," she said to a group at the table, "raising kids is unpredictable. One follows the path, one doesn't." A few people laughed politely. I just kept eating. By that point, the company had crossed 70 million in valuation. Investors were calling weekly. Reporters had begun emailing. But the strange thing about building something quietly is that your past can stay frozen in other people's minds. The wedding itself was large, 200 guests, maybe more. Everything was polished and expensive. The dress, the flowers, the lighting. My parents moved around the room glowing with pride. During the reception, I stepped outside to get some air. A few minutes later, someone followed me out. "Hey," a voice said behind me. I turned and saw Daniel. We had met 2 years earlier during a funding round. His firm had eventually invested in the company. He was technically one of my board members now. He smiled when he saw my expression. "I figured that was you," he said. "I saw your last name on the seating chart." Before I could answer, my father stepped outside too. He froze when he saw us. "Daniel XP, his dad," he said warmly. My father shook it, confused. "I'm Daniel Mercer," he added. "My firm works with your son." My father looked at me briefly. "Oh," he said. "You two know each other." Daniel laughed lightly. "Well, we do more than know each other." He turned slightly toward my father. "Your son built one of the fastest growing logistics platforms in the region. Our firm invested last year." My father didn't speak. Daniel continued casually. "Last valuation came in around 71 million. Honestly, we think it'll double." The silence after that sentence was long enough that even the music inside sounded distant. My father looked at me the way people look at something they don't fully recognize. "You started a company?" he asked slowly. I nodded. Daniel checked his watch. "I should get back inside," he said. "But seriously, congratulations on the wedding." Then he left us standing there. My father didn't say anything for a while. Through the glass doors, we could see my sister laughing with guests, her dress catching the light. Finally, he spoke. "Why didn't you tell us?" It wasn't an accusation. It sounded more like confusion. I leaned against the railing. "I tried to explain things a few times," I said. "A long time ago." He looked down at the ground. Inside, someone called his name. For the rest of the night, he was quieter. After the wedding, my phone started receiving messages from my parents. Careful ones. "How have you been? We should talk." We didn't realize. None of them mentioned the word dropout again. A week later, my mother asked if we could meet for lunch. I said yes. Not because everything had suddenly been fixed, but because for the first time, it sounded like they were asking to meet the person I had actually become. And that was new.